So why?
Like I was telling you, I could listen to this for hours and hours and hours. I could be jogging to it. I could be doing yoga. I could be meditating. And to me, it's almost like mist, early morning, dew, grace, beauty, all the things in between the things that we see. Like it represents the invisible, and I'm in awe with the invisible. I'm in awe with it. Yeah. This track brings these in me, and no matter how much I listen to it, every layer, it's like layer upon layer upon layer of subtlety, going into the more subtle, and sublime, my favorite word. And I noticed over time that, my God, with all the house music I listen to and all the gospel music and all the loud, actually, this is the sort of stuff that hits me and goes, oh.
Hits you or makes you move?
Both. Hits me in a way that makes me move on all levels: heart, mind, skin, goosebumps, just
physical movement.
Everything. I moved.
You dance to it?
I dance to this in all forms. I dance to it. Let's hear your jam.
Mine it's very eclectic, and it's similar to you. I have a wide, rainbow of music. I cannot say that this one specific, but this one is the band itself. It's Tina Rewan. You and I went to a concert a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Actually, thanks to you.
Because I knew you liked them,
exactly.
like this band.
And they're just amazing. They're just amazing. The guitar flow, the voice, the language that I don't understand, because you don't need to understand the language to live the moment. And the history of this band, the story, not the history, the story of this band, and it's just.
What about the story? What is?
Well, they're Tuareg,
yeah.
So they're in constant movement.
Right.
They're nomadic, right?
Yeah,
so they're not settled, and it's a vast. Their world is a vast territory, which is the Sahara Desert. That's how they define their identity. They are moving people. And for the longest time, they were fighting for their independence. And then they came to a point where they decided that, why don't we fight it by music?
Yeah.
Instead of just, using rifles and guns and whatever, we have a stronger point to make through music. And that's what I love about them.
Okay,
You can preserve and promote your identity. You can live your identity through art and through all ways of expressive art.
I'm going to challenge you with something.
I'm sure you will.
Can you say that sentence instead of you can define your identity, you can whatever, to saying I can?
I would, but that would be too pretentious of me, because I'm not an artist.
But you are.
I'm not an artist.
Yeah, you are. You are.
I think everybody is an artist in their own way, right? But that's the expressive side of art. So I can live my identity through art, or through the way I express art, or my appreciation of art. But I'm not an artist, so I can never pretend to do what Tina Rewan did, for example, right? Look at us. We straight ahead jumped into it. I didn't even make the introduction, but this is, as you may have guessed, an off episode of Forward Moves. We don't know when we're going to publish this episode. It's going to be at the end of season 1. It's going to be somewhere in season 2. It's going to stay as a pilot, for us to enjoy whenever we want. We're not too sure about that, but... Hello and welcome to Forward Moves, a podcast that celebrates the journey of successful achievers in the region, in the sphere of art and creativity, but all forms of expression. And today, I'm thrilled to be here with Lina Nahhas, my co-host, my friend, and my challenger on many fronts.
I love it already. I'm
Hello,
really,
Lina Nahhas. How are you?
really happy to be here with you face to face.
Yes, because we usually have a different setup, right?
But this is our concoction all our lives. Yeah. This is really the dynamic we have, is face to face, speaking to each other from the heart. So it's so nice to do it.
And that's how we came up with this idea of Forward Moves.
Yeah, you came up with the idea and invited me, but yes.
But you joined me. And the conversation continued, right? And we're so we were so honored and privileged to have all these guests that joined us on the different episodes, because not only have we invited them to our conversation, but they allowed us also to get into their own conversations. And this is what's so beautiful about this episode.
I agree. It's been such an eye-opener to have a peek inside, open that window and have a peek inside with no agenda other than just have a peek. And it's been really humbling. And I love it.
So at this point, we make the introduction.
Okay.
But again, without you challenging me, I'm feeling challenged that I don't know how to introduce you. I can talk about, when we first met, you were in the corporate world and you had your own market research company, which you later...
When we first met, I had just arrived to Dubai. And
From Canada.
From Canada. And I was like, who are these groups of amazing Arab young people who speak my language and we get along, because I came from a whole different world. And it was just so nice to land into that group of friends. And you happened to be one of them. And yes, we kept in touch. And that's my memory of Reza, the first time I met you.
Many moons ago.
Many moons ago.
And then you decided to let go of the corporate world. You successfully sold your company and you pivoted into what I later came to know was dear to you, which is connecting with people and working. I don't want to say working on programs and projects, because that kind of, frames
Initiatives.
Ideas.
Yeah.
Involving people. And this is how the Sameness Project came to life. And I like the idea of birth, because I remember you told me that after our first episode, you said, how do you feel having birthed something? Everybody knows about the Sameness Project, to the point where I kind of, borrowed the name and turned it into French similitude for an idea I'm working on in Switzerland. But I would love to hear about it from you, because I don't think I've ever asked you, what does the Sameness Project mean to you?
Well, after the corporate world, I was in market research all these years, and I was exposed to lots of humans, interviewing them. And towards the end, I was only in corporate social responsibility work. That's the only thing that whet my appetite. And I understood then very, very clearly that the key to every successful project, in my estimation in those days, is when you go beyond the layers of diversity. That was the buzzword then, to actually the layers where we're the same.
Did it have the same meaning that the diversity word back then? Did it have the same meaning that it
I don't think the term was even being used, but it's like every time we're trying to understand the nuances from a research point of view, the nuance. And for me, it was always like, well, what is the core? Yeah. And then it just so happened, after having Jude, my daughter, I had a visit to Palestine for the first time. I'm Palestinian, and had a moment with, I was in a workshop with a few Israeli mothers. And that moment for that 1 hour with that mother face to face, something fell. A wall fell. An invisible wall just went.
Invisible wall.
Which was more about mother to mother.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the narrative might have built. Life might have built. The storyline, ancestry, history. You can't say that wall doesn't exist or it's delusional. And that moment, I went back. I was really touched by it, because I thought, wow, if for one... It took 1 hour for me to tell her, to pray for her son, and we made a vow to each other. I said, you think of my daughter when you go back home, and I'll think of your son. And think of how we can be custodians to each other's kids as mothers.
That's beautiful.
And I was so touched by that moment that when I came back to Dubai, I was like, what am I going to do with this? I need to do something with this. How can I recreate this? If I can do this with my so-called enemy, how can I recreate this moment in everyday life, having all that background and all that knowledge about PR agencies, media companies, ad agencies, art galleries, etc. And that's how it was birthed. It was just an experiment. How can we create moments of sameness between seemingly two different... Any kind of group in society in Dubai that might seemingly look divided.
Different.
or different. Or divided, like in face-to-face, or not seeing each other. How can I bring, hence the line, humanity seeing humanity? How can we create and curate moments that could allow, and it was a difficult project, but it was a beautiful kind of
and it
lab.
went on for a few years.
It went on for about 8 years.
And it had different kind of, interpretations. There was the water for workers. There was it art on wheels?
Restart the art.
Restart the art.
Restart the heart. Yeah, there was some with domestic helpers, because we realized later through the experiment that it's actually social innovation that we're doing.
Yes.
And which means looking at where there are broken human systems in our society and where do we look to, how do we approach them? And for me, it was pure empathy building. And so we looked at domestic helpers, because for me that was a huge pain, having my child and witnessing how domestic helpers have been. So we had a project with them, Souls and Stories, and then we had ones with the workers of Dubai, which at that time they were invisible workers.
Yes.
So we did things like, water for workers.
That's how I came to know the Sameness Project. Right. And I found the Sameness Project, Water for Workers, as an amazing way of telling them, hey, it's not exactly what you see at the invisible workers, right? Yes. And we remember we used to go on Saturdays, pick up the bottles with the kids. From your stands.
And just to tell them, listen, this is not about giving water. This is just the excuse. This is about the conversation, touching their hand and making them...
Making that connection.
And being equal. Just being on equal level as humans. So,
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. But then again, ever-changing Lina, you kept on moving. And that's how 5 Rhythms came into your life.
Yeah. Well, 5 Rhythms came a little bit earlier because, everything I'm noticing as well as I get older and as I witness also our guests, is everything comes... We are an inquiry. We're a moving inquiry. And so I learned that 5 Rhythms came to my life because I was suffering from divorce. I was trying to find my healing, and I couldn't find it in anything else except this movement, 5 Rhythms, which is a beautiful cosmology. Went and studied it and went and offered it to the world, because that's the next step, is once you heal yourself, or once I heal myself, I'm like, well, I need to give this to someone. This has to be, and that's where I became a teacher. So I realized through my journey that even research at the beginning was more like, I want to know people. I want to understand them inside out. So I realize now that this is the thread that at least holds my journey.
So what's the elevator pitch for 5 Rhythms?
I hate that word, elevator.
I know, but I love using it.
It's a conscious movement modality that started over 50 years ago, and it's a beautiful map and cosmology that has its roots in everything from Jungian psychology to Sufi mystic teachings to shamanic rituals, etc. And basically, through movement, the psyche heals itself, basically.
And how important is movement in our life?
It's number one. If we're not in our body, nothing happens. Everything is just illusion. So the body holds it here, and when we move the body, we're moving life, we're moving the story, we're moving the emotion, we're moving the stuckness, and then the potential comes through. So it's absolutely pivotal.
But is it only physical movement?
Well, the physical is number one. Without the physical, the rest doesn't move with it. It's energy, right? We're energy. And if we don't move the most dense of our parts, which is the body, nothing else moves. And so that's the secret to it. It's the key, the first key. Yeah. Okay. And I saw you in movement. You see, when I witnessed you, we went for a walk once, and then we decided we'd do this walking thing.
Oh yes, the early
morning walk. But then I had competition,
Bless him.
And that competition took over, and I couldn't have you for the walk. And I saw how in your body you are, contrary to what you thought. I thought, gosh, Reza is a very physical person, and because you're physical, you have an instinct. That's why you got so emotional with the song. And I was always curious about that because, again, I knew you from day one as, apart from, the wonderful friend that you are and the listener and the taking in information and regurgitating back thinking it's from the mind, but actually it was really from your body. I've known you always as the corporate person. Always the corporate person, whether it was the ad agency, whether then later it was at Philip Morris, whether it was later on in the fashion world, all the way to Apple, and now retired and pursuing passions of sorts. But I really do think it was your body taking you there all along.
But that's why I ask you about movements being physical or else, but I'm trying to answer a question you did not ask me. But
the question is: do you know that about it? Do you feel it was your body that was taking you, and you're being so attuned to what's out there?
It's. I don't think I feel it, but I live it. I am in perpetual movement. I could never sit still, and both, physically and metaphorically or mentally. And I remember on one of our episodes, Alcide told us about his friend who told him, "Même immobile, je suis en mouvement." And so even when I'm still, I'm moving. And I think this is what defines human nature. This is what defines humanity, that we are constantly in movement. And for the longest, I was constantly in movement in the corporate world. And I thought this is how I would define myself, until the time came where I said, I would like to move somewhere else. I would like to move differently. And that's when a year ago, I decided to retire from the corporate world. And contrary to, the myth that, retirees enjoy long days by the beach, as Nadine Conso once, told me that I am doing. But no, it's the flow of ideas and the flow of questions keep me moving. And I think it's fueled by the same motivation and energy that fueled you, and you refer to it as inquiry. I'm not inquiry, I'm curious.
Inquiry. Oh, is it? Did you hear it as inquiry?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what did you say?
Inquiry.
Oh, okay.
I love it.
Inquiry.
Okay, good. Let's go with the inquiry.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
But I'm neither, because I'm just curious, right? And we talked on our show many times the important role of curiosity. We talked about how we bring down these virtual walls, these virtual barriers, this divide that you refer to, and I refer to as difference, right? Because divide is a bit of a harsh, and it's a consequence of this misperceived difference. If we're not curious, we won't be able to bring any of these walls. We won't be able to reach out to the other and connect with the others. And curiosity is what made us as a race evolve, because by being curious, we're creative to solve problems we faced on a daily basis. And by doing so, we kept on moving forward. And I think today the world lacks that curiosity. People are very comfortable in sitting behind their walls, in living that divide, in identifying the other as a different other, rather than as an other that I can connect with. So a long detour to tell you why I decided to move away from the corporate world and pursue some, passion project sounds like, somebody who made his fortune in corporate world, and now, you can only have a passion project if you already sold, I don't know, like bags of rice, for 30 years, right? But it's more, it's more pursuing that curiosity. So we have this podcast, which, I'm curious to find out about the stories of those who achieved phenomenal success in the region, and share these stories, because I truly believe this region has a much stronger, impactful narrative than what is out there today.
True.
What is being told about us as a region, as an identity, as a nation out there. We're neither just victims, nor just, whatever the opposite of the victim is. We are creative human beings who have been curious and who are living their potential. And that needs to be told.
You know, what I love about what you're also saying is that, which is so you, it takes humility to be able to be curious. I feel because it takes saying, I don't know it all, you know, and that space is so essential. And I've always seen that about you. I don't know it all. Tell me more, you know, and then that's why this goes on, because usually it's a monologue.
Yeah.
From anybody from the corporate world, like I'm now back in the corporate world.
I'm known to have some good monologues. You know?
Sometimes monologues are needed, okay? But when you're in that space where you want to grow, there's space for wanting to know more, and it takes humility to go, I want to know, I don't know it all. And then comes the curiosity, and then comes the hearing, and then comes the connection, and then comes the expansion, because it's double expansion.
It's true. It's true. And probably, you know, I would use a different word than humility. I would use probably self-awareness, because self-awareness it leads to vulnerability in a way. And vulnerability is unfortunately an abused term, because people equate it to weakness. Whereas I see it as a strength. You know, if you're vulnerable, then you know what you want to work on. You know how to move forward. At least you know that you need to inquire about moving forward, right? And that takes self-awareness. Yeah. And I think this is what many lack today, is this self-awareness that will allow them to realize that, hey, I don't know it all. And if I want to know more, not necessarily all, because we cannot possibly know it all.
No, and we know some things more than other things, and more than other people, and some things we don't. Like also awareness to know, where do you know what you know, and where can you contribute with it? That's something that also struck me today. I'm like, how come Reza is really in tune with things? I mean, you know, not that you shouldn't be, but how come you are in tune? And when I told you, I arrived at the point where I'm thinking you are physically, you're instinctual. And for me, from my practice, people who are instinctual are very much in their bodies, meaning they are in the present moment, meaning they are self-aware, meaning awareness, not self-conscious, aware.
Yeah, and there's a distinction between
There's
two.
an absolute distinction. Yes. So there's that awareness, and awareness to me is presence.
Yes.
You know, to be able to be present in the moment, in the body, in this here and now, is what keeps us open to whatever new is coming in, and what might be channeled, what might be said, what might be heard, what is beyond us in the flesh. And I wonder, what makes you aware? Like, because sometimes you surprise me, Reza. Like you told me one day that you meditate, and I was like, Reza meditates? Yeah. What? Yay! I don't as regularly as he does. And it's kind of like, well, what are the things? Because that's a surprise from someone typically coming from the corporate world with a busy life, a father, a husband, a good father and good husband, a very proud and very good father and husband.
Grateful.
So tell me more. What is, because you gave me an advice, be grateful yesterday. And I was like, thank you for the beautiful reminder. I love you.
But that's the
so
answer.
What is it that takes you there?
That's your answer. It's, and I can't even start pretending that, you know, I have the answer. But what I can share is what everybody does, is that awareness comes from being grateful, because we can't take things for granted. We absolutely cannot take things for granted. The minute we start taking things for granted, we're stuck. And it's not like I have an issue with the term present, because I think by being present, by being rooted, you can move forward. People misinterpret that, I'm present, I'm in the now.
No.
And I cannot project myself into the future, right? But you need to be in the now to be able to see the future.
Yes.
Or at least to see how you're going to move towards that future. And simply the fact that I'm grateful, this is what makes me aware of who I am.
So what feeds that gratitude? Like, what is your fuel for that gratitude? Because it takes reminding to be grateful, right?
It is.
And so
It is a daily chore. It's every day you have to.
So you're actually purposely doing that through your own
My
tools.
evening meditation is just reminding myself 3 things I'm grateful about.
That's
it could be
incredible.
about simple things. I'm grateful I could take my ginger shot today. Or I'm grateful that, Sasha, my eldest, is now doing his national service, is actually going through that. I'm grateful that Naila, my younger daughter, is recovering from her, knee injury. Or,
When did that start, this awareness of gratitude? When did you, because that came as a surprise to me, I have to tell you.
I'll be honest with you, it came as a surprise to me as well. Because I never thought I could be part of that thinking, right? And I mean, the easy answer would be that it came with age.
Yes. And that's true.
But that's true because you get to a point where you have this acquired experiences, and you are, with people who have shared experiences as well. And that, in a way, helps you settle in that sense of gratitude. The importance is that you acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And not take it for granted. Because some people, and I was part of that as well, you can take it for granted that you're grateful. And it becomes just like a mantra thing. I'm grateful. No, remind yourself why.
Yeah.
And that's why these little things that you're grateful about are important anchors.
It's so good that with age, that's our favorite topic.
Hey, I wish our age for everybody getting to our age.
I know, I love it. I love how that age affords us this luxury of retrospecting and slowing down enough, or giving us the luxury of slowing down enough to accurately track the small things. Because it takes slowing down to notice the small things. That's my song. The beauty. So I love how with age you retrospect, you share with like-minded people, with your tribe, with your peers, with your friends, and there's that bigger awareness and acknowledgement, so that gratitude can take a better, firm step in life. And I always in my groups, whenever I have workshops or circles or whatever, in my practice, I always start with gratitude. I always make sure we go around looking, because I read somewhere that gratitude actually comes with a frequency. Like gratitude, when you are consciously, it takes 90 seconds. When you're consciously in gratitude, it elevates the frequency and vibrate. Remember, we're all energy in my books.
I like that word, in gratitude, rather than being grateful.
No, when we're in gratitude, because it's a space, it's an emotional field, and it's a vibration. So when we invite it in and we're in it consciously, it automatically raises our frequency to that is even superior or even of the same level as love, which is healing. And they've studied this. They've actually studied apparently these frequencies. So it's a healing space. It's something that can, in 90 seconds, can bring you to a whole different space of potential.
Yes.
And I'm fascinated by the science of that, and just goes back to you. Present is really in perpetual movement because it's energy.
It's energy.
And all we're doing is we're inviting into it different frequencies.
And it's this awareness that feeds that energy. Right? If you're not tuned to what's happening or what you're going through, then I don't think you can feed the energy.
That's right.
What does it play the same role with you? This awareness,
yes, and
and there's a follow-up question to that. I'm sure you know that.
There's nothing like contrast in life, I'm noticing, to jolt one back into awareness. So just when I fall into a rhythm and a default space, and I go, okay, this is where humility goes away. And I go, okay, I'm surfing in my most peaceful way. A jolt comes along and contrast comes, and I'm forced to retrospect. That's why I was asking you about retrospecting. And that's when I become more aware, because it's so easy. I mean, come on, we're human, right? To say that we're constantly 100% all the time in the awareness space of divine breath in my spiritual practice, because that's what divine is. The in-breath and out-breath is what keeps us with the rhythm of life. is to say that is to claim the impossible, to claim the miraculous. I'm not a monk in some mountain. So I found recently, because of this shift in I pivoted towards a different space right now, as you well know. I'm back in the corporate world. And that brought a whole different level of awareness in me. And I'm thankful for that. I'm really thankful for so I'm now very aware of contrast. Whether it's a contrast between having a cup of coffee and tea, or having a podcast with 3 people, or just one-on-one, all these contrasts have created such a magnificent awareness, because it does allow us to slow down, allow me to slow down.
But slow down in order to move forward. Right?
Always. You see, whether I like it or not, or you like it or not, we're moving forward. Because life is in motion. And then, like, you know, it is, like you said, in perpetual motion. And like El Cid said, it's and even Karuhat, DJ Karuhat, it's in perpetual motion. But it's our choice whether to ride on that wave willingly or to ignore it and be dragged along. So for me, it's more like I'm a choice to flow with this, and what a beautiful ride it then becomes. So it's a movement anyway.
So what other elements contribute to that movement? Or to make it, you know, a simple question, what keeps you moving forward?
Love, like it's been coming up all the time, but love for the moment, love for even the pain and the suffering, like coming to terms with, I know that's very morose, but coming to terms with life comes with these challenges, and the suffering is part of the beauty, and accepting that and living it fully to create poetry out of it has kept me forward. I know this is very abstract and poetic, but it's true. My daughter. So that's where the love, Jude. Yeah. So she's kept me moving forward, because even in those moments where I'm dragged, I'm like, I don't want to go. I have her to look forward to move me forward, and her wisdom. Friends, community, this genocide actually has kept me forward. Just when I became complacent, suddenly it's reminded me of my roots, my indigenous ways of being in community, of knowing how to heal in a circle, how to come back to our ways, which I took for granted. So all of a sudden, a new window into being. So all of that life, whatever it throws at me, being present with it, and it's good, bad, ugly. This conversation, our moments, I'd wait for you to come from Switzerland every once in a while and have our moments. All that medicine, to me, has, and I'm grateful, has kept me going forward, truly. Even though I've stayed in Dubai all these years, people come and go, and I've just stayed as old as the furniture.
And your practice, you know.
The practice is one thing, yes, absolutely. I'm grateful for my teachers, actually. That's what keeps me forward. Just this morning, I was in touch with a teacher. He's actually Swiss originally, Alain Allard, and I'm going to go and see him and spend 10 days because I crave the work itself.
Yes.
When I'm giving it, it doesn't mean I'm always receiving it. So
that's true.
I have to say, we have to have gratitude for teachers. And yes, my daughter is one of them. My friends are others, my parents, my siblings, the world, but teachers who are teachers. It's important to have these mentors, right?
I love that.
Do you have mentors in your life?
I had many mentors. Right. And it's interesting because you can have, Francine is my life mentor. But you can have different mentors at different moments of your life. And I'm very grateful for all of them. And some of them didn't even want to be mentored, but they just assumed the role by just being part of my life and part of that particular movement I was in.
Like whom, for example?
You're one of my mentors. You know, the conversations I have with you are always eye-opening.
Yeah.
Always like, inquiry of another understanding. I don't want to say another meaning, but another understanding of things. I mentioned Francine, but also my children, Sasha and Naela. So you see, what I'm trying to say is that you can assume an official role of a mentor and a mentee, and I've done that throughout my corporate world. A couple of the projects that that are dear to my heart, I'm trying to get off the ground in Switzerland, will allow me to now share my knowledge with up and coming young artists. But at the same time, never forget that you're always a mentee.
Yes.
You can be a mentor, but you're always a mentee.
Of life,
and that's
where
the role of teachers that you mentioned is very, very important.
Do you feel like those, like, for example, you and I, like you said it at the beginning, I'm no doubt you're going to challenge me.
Well, I'm happy with this kind of challenges.
But that's the point. Like, when we're together, it flows because I'm challenged by you, I challenge you, but there's this element of respect and it breeds that level of holding a safe container to challenge each other,
of course, yeah.
So we're safe. Like, no matter what you say, it will not, like, it would never put me in a space of, I don't want to ever speak to Reza again. To the contrary, there's a level of space. So do you feel...
But once you get to that point, at any relationship...
Yeah.
What's the point?
Yeah.
Right? I mean...
But it's just, I feel like even our kids, so there's that level, that piece of unconditional love that comes with the mentors that you accept the most out of. They challenge you, they push you, but there's a level of respect and unconditional love that you go, I'll take this in, let me see what I can do. And like the same with Jude, like the way she challenges me, the way that you challenge me, it takes a particular type of mentor or is it a particular kind of lens to accept that mentor that way? That mentor loves me enough, unconditional love, I respect them, they respect me, that I'll take anything, and let's challenge each other and grow.
I would say it takes to go back to awareness. It takes a certain level of awareness and recognition that I still can learn. I still can learn, and we are in perpetual movement, but we're the eternal students, right? Yeah. And this brings us back to the point of curiosity that I have mentioned earlier. Who are we if we're not curious?
Yes.
And this is what, at least in my case, this is what keeps me moving forward. This thirst to know more, but it also comes from the awareness that I don't know.
Do you ever, so I'm going to put a dark lens. I had an image where I'm going to take
Do we need to end up on the dark lens?
No.
We need to wrap it up.
Do we? Okay. If I remove the pink lens off and I put a darker lens, because you made it sound like you're in perpetual curiosity, perpetual inquiry, Have you ever had an armor?
Oh, all the time.
Okay, so when does
all the time.
But that's the thing. Like, some things and some people.
You have an armor as well.
Of course, but that's the point. Is that my point is to challenge this point, because I'm curious about it. Some things are conducive to moving us forward because of that curiosity, that it's almost like seduces us forward with curiosity, because there's love, respect, amazing frequency that makes us gel and resonate with each other. And some things make us go, no, and we shut down and we're not taken to.
Well, we need
what
to do
makes that difference? What creates this situation? What creates this situation?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
All I know is that we need it.
Right.
We need it. It's like, I'll give you another example. It's like we're constantly with people, but I sometimes, and I know you do, I need to retreat to myself. Is this an armor? So be it, right? Sometimes I need to shut out.
Okay.
I need to just, I just want to resource, to rejuvenate, to re-question certain things, which is often the case.
Yeah.
Is this an armor? Yes. That's why the armor thing is not necessarily a bad thing. You need it.
Right.
You need it. But I wouldn't be able to tell you what triggers that, but except that that sometimes we get to a point where you get overwhelmed and say, you know what?
Yeah. And also, I want to say, to be fully honest and vulnerable here, some people trigger the tantrum child in me. I have to say it.
Yeah.
They trigger that child where I'm like, no to everything. So that curiosity stops. It's like, whatever that person says, That energetic field is not happening. Boundaries up. I'm not going there.
Boundaries are another armor.
You know?
I was smiling because the pretentious me is like, okay, so I triggered that child tantrum when I was pushing to do this podcast together. Okay,
No.
It's the annoying teta.
No. I love my tetas. That's not at all. It's not at all.
Well, Lina, this has been, as always,
that flew by.
That flew by, and we could go on forever. But thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for joining me in this crazy adventure of doing a podcast. We are not podcasters, but who else is, right? So, right. But we enjoy talking to each other.
Yeah.
Every conversation, I found out new things about you today.
Same here.
It's an opportunity to nurture our curiosity. And I think this is what we should be doing. All of us is to stay curious, because that's the only way we can keep on moving forward.
And stay human and stay soft and be fueled by that person's humanity. And that's what I'm learning all along with you and this podcast. And I need to thank you. I'm grateful for you for that invitation as well, to go outside the comfort zone and do something completely different. And truly, these guests that are coming on are each
so
one of them,
inspirational.
Each person is a universe of their own.
Absolutely.
And it's just like really, really...
And we're grateful to them.
Yeah. It's brought up a lot for me. So I'm learning. Thank you.
This has been Forward Moves, a podcast hosted by Lina Nahhas and Reza Haddad, where we just talk to each other today.
Yes.
If you like our show, do share it. Rate us with a 5 stars rating and tell your friends about it. Until then, keep moving forward.